All righty. So welcome everyone to our evening all about voting in Broward and our new voting laws. Um, we're on behalf of the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce, I welcome you. This event is being put on by COBOL, which is a Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce coalition. And for those of you who don't know, who are joining us for the first time, COBOL stands for Coalition of Black Organization Leaders. And the coalition is made up of, and I'm just going to shout out some of the organizations and then turn it over to our esteemed chair, the Caribbean Bar Association, NFBPA, the TJ Reddick Bar Association, Gwen S. Cherry Bar Association, the Haitian Lawyers Association, NHHR, BOMA, the BlackMBAs, and our newest member, the National Association of Black Compliance and Risk Management, Inc. So we're happy to come together as a coalition and a group to present important topics. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our esteemed chair, Janice Haywood, who has taken the reins of this coalition and done a great job. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Shahiwa. Thank you, and welcome again, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started and introduce our wonderful guest speaker, Joe Scott, who took time out of his very busy schedule to come and talk about a very important topic today. In addition, I wanted to just let everyone know, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Joe Scott, please drop it in the chat. And then Ashley, who is the immediate past president of TJ Reddick Bar Association, I'll turn it over to her and she can bring those questions out to the floor. So we want to make sure that all your questions are answered this evening. So I will start. Joe Scott comes from a family of public servants. His grandmother, Carrie, was the first Black woman to vote in Wilcox County, Alabama. His mom is retired from Broward Public Schools, an educator for over 40 years. We know that's a kudos to her for all those who did virtual teaching, learning, and all that stuff. Joe's dad is a retired Army Sergeant Major and disabled veteran. Thank you for his service. His wife of 16 years is an Army veteran and a nurse anesthetist who serves Broward hospitals in the face of the COVID-19 threat. Thank you for her service. And Joe is pretty impressive as well. He graduated from West Point and was awarded the Bronze Star as an Army captain, combat leader in Iraq. Joe has an MBA from Villanova University and 20 years of combined military and technology leadership experience. He became our new supervisor of elections in Broward County after the November 2020 elections, and we're so happy to welcome him tonight. So thank you for your service, Joe Scott. His name Joe Scott, Joe. Thank you for your service, Joe. Thank you, your wife. I mean, all of you come from a very, very impressive family, so we're so happy to have you here. And so the first question I want to ask you is, what has been your biggest challenge since becoming Broward County Supervisor of Elections?
Wow, the biggest challenge. I would say that, dealing with the changes that came through our legislature has to be the biggest challenge. Did not expect the persistence of this opposition that came out of the 2020 election.
Whoa.
When you have, and it's something that has happened for a long time, where you have, sometimes you have a sore loser in an election who then wants to turn around and blame the election system for the fact that he lost his election. But there's actually just this entire group of people that ranges from lawmakers who are working hard in Tallahassee to make it more difficult for people to vote, to activists out in the streets that basically want to go out and try to intimidate election officials and election workers. And this is something that has actually continued to persist, which I think was really surprising and is still surprising even after all these months. And dealing with that and focusing on making sure that the staff is safe and making sure that we're prepared for our future elections and having to deal with this new climate is probably the biggest challenge that we'll be facing here over the next couple of years.
And thank you, Joe. And you talk about your staff. I don't think, a lot of people are aware of how many people you supervise. So can you just briefly, just tell us, what is your staff? How many people do you supervise? How many offices, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. So, and the interesting thing, I know a lot of people think of elections and they think of the presidential election that happens every 4 years. But my office here, and there's 67 supervisors across the state of Florida, but we are the second largest office in the state, the largest being Miami-Dade County. And we also run the elections for the 31 cities of Broward County, as well as any county-wide races, including the school board, the county commission. All of the judges that we have in Broward County, are elected as well. The elected county judges and circuit court judges. So there's really a lot of different positions that we have elections for. So there's a lot more elections, that go on throughout the year. We actually have a full-time staff that includes 78 people, and that staff grows to be hundreds of people as we're approaching a big election, and then it grows to include all thousands of poll workers that are across over 500 polling locations that we have open on election day for the big elections that are countywide. So the organization really scales. It goes from being a somewhat small organization of 78 people to thousands of people working on election day.
Thank you so much, Joe. One of your initiative was to make changes to the Supervisor of Elections website. You wanted it to be more informative and user-friendly, and I know that comes a lot with your technology background. Can you explain, have those changes been done? What is your view for that, and so forth?
Yeah, so we're actually in various stages. We have a lot of really exciting projects going on right now. And probably the most exciting and the biggest one that will happen before the special election that's taking place on November 2nd. We are actually putting in a new system, somewhat of a new system that is going to help make it easier for people to find their polling place on election day. Now, it might sound like a small thing, but let me put this into perspective for everybody. On a typical day, my office might receive about 40 calls. But then when it comes to the day of a presidential election, we're handling 4,000 calls, right? So for that same organization to then do the massive scale up that we have to do and try to have competent people available to answer the phone who can answer questions for folks and look up their information and answer their questions is a huge operation in and of itself, just to prepare that group of people to work that day. One thing that we're actually doing to make that process a little bit easier is that we're instituting, we're going to use a system that involves AI. And it's basically going to work by voice, text message, and by a web chat when somebody goes to our website. And we're starting off with sort of what I would call the low-hanging fruit, which is just somebody coming to us, which is probably a good 25% of the calls that we get. Where do I go to vote? Right? So somebody calls up, wants to ask, where do I go to vote? Or also contacts us by text message or goes to our website. It's going to be much easier. You'll basically be able to give this AI system our first name, last name, date of birth, and then it will return your polling location for you. Or if you're looking to go to an early voting location, it'll tell you where your nearest early voting site is, and it can also tell you where the nearest drop box location is if you have a vote by mail ballot and you'd like to drop it off. So really that whole where do I go vote question, we want to make sure that we're making it as easy as possible. We think if we make it easier for people to get that information, it'll mean that more people will actually vote. More people will end up voting because it'll be just because we made it easier for them. And that's a lot of times just what people need in order to get active and get involved in the process. So that system will be in place before this special election that's coming up in November. We're actually moving forward with that now and getting that in place. And there's several other projects too, but that's the one I'm most excited about.
That is so good to hear, because I know that is always number one number one question that we get is where can we vote? Where can we do early voting, the time? So the fact that we can just put in our name and our date of birth and we're able to get that information and fingertips, that's so great. So I'm so excited for that change. And you brought me to my next topic, which is a special election. Can you explain for those who are on this meeting who don't know what a special election is, what exactly is a special election and what is the upcoming one about?
Sure. So the upcoming election is going to be on November 2nd. And the reason we're having a special election is because the unfortunate death of Congressman Alcee Hastings. Now, as a result of him passing away, we do have to have a special election to replace him. So we have a new member of Congress. We're also going to have additional special elections coming up in the future, because Florida has what's called the Resign to Run law. So basically, for all the other elected officials who are either serving in the state legislature or on a county commission or a city commission or serving as a mayor or in any other position, school board, you name it, if they want to run for Congress, they will have to resign from their current position. And then once they resign from their current position, that creates a vacancy we then have to have special for. So really over the next year, we're planning to just be continuously in election mode because we'll be having elections and then we'll be having special elections to fill because we have a state senator, a state representative here in Broward County. There's another state representative in Palm Beach County who's resigning. We have 2 county commissioners that are resigning. We have a school board member that is resigning to run for Senate. So we just have a lot going on in terms of people resigning to run that are then going to trigger their own special elections that we'll end up having to run in the future.
Thank you, Joe. And I want to encourage everyone that special elections are very important. I know that, people get hyped when it's the president, but special elections are so important because you are voting for municipalities, those laws, those persons that directly affect you and your precinct and where you live in your city, in your county. And so it's very important that when you start getting the mailings and information by the supervisor of elections, to pay attention, spread the word, and inform other people about the importance of it. So now I'm going to go into, sorry, go ahead.
Probably a good number of people on the call right now, if you grew up here in Broward County, Alcee Hastings was probably, somebody you knew in Congress your entire life. And that just kind of tells you how these things tend to go. We're going to pick the next person who's going to be the next member of Congress. And what tends to happen is those people stick around for a really long time. So, don't sleep on the special election. That is, that's going to be a big deal in terms of picking that new leader.
And Alcee Hastings, like you said, was such a trailblazer. He's actually one of the founding members of the Reddick Bar Association, which is the Black Lawyers Association in Broward County. He's done so much, so he held that seat and he held it down. So we have to make sure whoever the next person is, they have big shoes to fill. So we have to make sure we go out and vote, be an informed voter, and go out and vote. So now I'm going to talk about the changes. Got a lot of changes coming up. So the first thing I'm going to ask you about is the vote by mail ballots. So there were a few changes that I noticed, but of course, if anything that you think that is impactful that you should bring up, please discuss. One of it was that it prohibits mailing or providing a ballot without a request. Was that something that was done before where that ballots were just mailed out? Explain how it was done before and what the changes.
Oh yeah, no, you always had to request a vote by mail ballot.
Okay.
A lot of this stuff, unfortunately, there's a lot of things that were put in this bill just as a result of what we call the big lie, right? This idea that there was this massive voter fraud that took place, and now we've got to change all the voting laws to make it harder for people to cheat. It's all nonsense. A lot of the stuff was just foolishness. But yeah, that one is a good example. It's not no change there.
So what is one of the main changes that have been made to the vote by mail ballots that we should be aware of?
Sure. As far as vote by mail, the piece there, the biggest change is that you actually have to re-request your vote by mail every 2 years, which is almost like the way you go to register to vote. When you register to vote, as long as you're an active voter who continuously votes, you stay on the voter rolls, forever. You can go and show up. You have to, show your ID. With this, it's like you can request a vote by mail ballot. You can use the vote by mail system, but you're going to have to re-request that vote by mail ballot after every general election, which is, just something that it should just be automatic. For the people that are the active voters who are continuously voting, it should just be an automatic thing where they stay in the system and they keep rolling, because it's really a waste of resources on us as administrators that we have to go back and put these people back into the system all over again in order for them to get a vote by mail ballot that next cycle. If you're a consistent vote by mail voter, why would you even leave the system? Why not just keep you in?
Yeah, that makes sense. And we have a question from the audience, and I want to encourage people, if you have any questions, to please drop it in the chat and we'll make sure Joe gets to answer it. A question is, have there been any changes in regards to seniors and voting by mail?
In regards to seniors.
So the question is, I'm going to read it verbatim, is what is the change for voting by mail, especially for seniors? Is there anything in particular to seniors
Well, I would say probably one thing, maybe, and not necessarily for seniors, but I would say anybody who maybe has mobility problems or has a disability. We always had community groups that helped people get their ballots back in. So you get your vote by mail ballot, and the right way to do it would be for the person to vote. They put it in the envelope, they seal it up. Some communities, people just really don't have a lot of trust in sending their ballot through the postal service, which is something I'm working on. I think people should trust the postal service, especially here in Broward County. But nevertheless, there's a lot of folks, especially in our community, senior citizens, who don't trust the postal service and would prefer to have a trusted, family member or friend take that ballot and go drop it off. So the way the new law reads is basically that you're allowed to have your own ballot, your immediate family, plus 2 more ballots that you're allowed to drop off, which is just, makes it a little bit difficult for people who were providing more of a service to a larger number of people in their community. This action was kind of became something that became a bit of a, a political, football for them, where they, they call it ballot harvesting. But really what ballot harvesting often referred to was people who were doing something illegal and trying to go out and collect ballots for some sort of nefarious purpose. But then they sort of manipulated that term and turned it into something that included, just community groups. In some cases, you're talking churches. In some cases, you're talking assisted living facilities. You're talking about communities that would basically ensure that the people in their community were voting by collecting those ballots and making sure they got delivered to the supervisor's office. And those types of efforts are going to be much more difficult now to do while complying with the new law.
Thank you. Yeah, that's going to be very difficult to police also, right? Like, are you going to have some, like, how are you going to police somebody, how many ballots someone's dropping off? Or do you plan on having increased personnel to police that? Or is that in the works?
Yeah, no. So, for us, we're going to comply with the law 100%. So we're going to make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to do to make sure that we're complying with the law. And, for us, what we consider a legal ballot is when we get a ballot back to us, we actually go through a signature verification process to make sure that the person who was the registered voter who is supposed to vote that ballot is the person who actually signed the envelope. And as long as that ballot has the signed envelope, then we'll consider that a valid ballot, and that ballot will count.
Okay, thank you, Joe. We have another question from the audience. Given these changes, what plans does the supervisor of election have to amplify marketing efforts to maintain high levels of voter turnout in Broward County?
Oh boy, how much time do we have? So there's a few different things that we're doing. We've really boosted our social media presence since I became the supervisor. We actually, some of the things we had, like we had a Facebook and a Twitter, but wasn't really being used very much. I got the Instagram started for the office and the YouTube page. We had a YouTube page, but we personalized the page and did some things to it. So we're really using a lot more communications channels than have been used in the past, but we're going to continue to use those traditional channels as well. But in addition to that, really just trying to make the process more, improve communication overall. One thing that we're doing, we have this new system that's called Ballot Tracks. Now this is already in place. It's a brand new system that you can go to our website right now and sign up for. And what this system does is it'll give you a notification. If you're a vote by mail, which I hope everybody does sign up for vote by mail because that's the best way to vote. But you will get a notification that your ballot is on its way to you. We're actually going to send you a reminder. And there's 3 different ways that we're going to communicate with you, basically. You can receive a text message from us, receive an email from us, or a robocall, or all 3 or any combination of the 3 that you want, right? So you go on, you sign up, you tell us how you want to be communicated with, and we're going to push notifications to you, let you know the status of your ballot. We'll let you know that we got your ballot back and it was counted. Or if there's a problem, if your signature didn't match, we'll send you a text message and let you know, hey, there was a problem with your signature match. Here's what you need to do to fix it. Or if you gave us an address and we sent you a ballot and it came back to us, which is pretty common. Ballots can't be forwarded. So if the address you give us, if you have a forwarding address, the ballot's coming right back to us. So we need to be able to notify you, hey, that address you gave us for your ballot, we got it back. We need a different address. Where are you? Where do we need to send the ballot? So I think there's just a lot of low hanging fruit that I see coming in as a new supervisor for us to improve our communications in a way that's automated. So it's not going to cost the taxpayers a whole lot of money to do these very proactive steps in terms of improving our communications. And if we can improve our communications, we make it easier for people to access the information that they need to ensure that their vote is counted. And that is going to result in higher voter turnout for us here in Broward County. So, that's the plan. That's what it's really all about. And, if we can improve that communication, we can use multiple channels and communicate with people where they are, the way they want to be communicated with. I think that's really going to make a big difference for us and really drive a lot more participation in our election system.
And that can be signed up on the website, correct?
Yes, BrowardVotes.gov is our website.
And you talk about social media. You have YouTube. I know you have Instagram because I follow you. And what other social media do you have?
Yeah, we're at Broward Votes. At Broward Votes, we have a Facebook page, we have Twitter, we have Instagram. We actually signed up for a bunch of others. We signed up for, say, like Snapchat and TikTok and all these different things. And we haven't started using them yet, but we're planning to gradually.
But you got it reserved. You got it reserved.
Yeah, we have the handle reserved. That's the important thing. So that as things change, I think we signed up for Twitch. We signed up for a lot of things just to make sure that we have it held down, and then we'll get there as we start building up our capabilities and figuring out where people are, where the voters are, and where we need to communicate with them. Where we'll be.
You say Twitch. What is
Thank
that?
you, Joe.
What is that? What's Twitch?
It's for gamers. So
Gotcha.
It's gamers, yeah.
Young gamers, I'll be able to tell you all about Twitch.
So we have another question from the audience. Will poll workers have to request an absentee ballot now, or will that ballot be automatically mailed?
So everybody has to request a vote by mail ballot in order to get it. There may have been, I believe that in the past, there may have been a program where the poll workers were signed up for vote by mail, but I can tell you under the new law, you really have to, they're very specific that we can't send anybody a vote by mail ballot without a request.
Okay. Thank you. And I see Commissioner Jelen says, Joe, I like the idea of ranked choice voting. Is this something that the supervisor of election can manage and administer?
No, it would have to be the state law would have to change in order for us to be able to have that.
And can you explain for those who don't know what is ranked choice voting?
Yeah, if anybody's been following the election that just took place in New York City, the New York City race was held using ranked choice voting. And basically what that does, and I can use, and we can look at the New York City race as a good example. What you had there was that you had a number of different candidates. Like you had so many different candidates that if you just kind of did what we do as a regular election, and you have 10, 15 people running, you might have somebody who wins that race with, say, 15% of the vote, right? Because it's just so many candidates and it's so spread out. So you can have this really small group of people that's really passionate about you, but then 85% of the people hate you, and you don't want that person to win the election, right? So if you have a ranked choice system, what you'll do is you'll take the person, whoever's in last place, they get eliminated. And then whoever their second choice is, those votes get redistributed to their second choice. So basically what you do is you keep eliminating people from the bottom until you get to, until somebody is over 50% basically, or you get down to 2 candidates, which at that point, somebody would have to be over 50%. But then what that does is it makes sure that whoever the winner is actually has a broad base of support and isn't, somebody who is loved by 15% and hated by 85%. So that's what ranked choice voting would do for you. I think it's definitely necessary because I think that kind of thing happens a lot in elections. People know, when they're running in a race where there's a whole bunch of people on the ballot, they know they just have to focus on their little group of people and get all of their people out to vote, and that they can win that way and ignore the rest of the electorate. And if you had ranked choice voting, you just can't do that. You need to make sure that a lot of people pick you as a second choice, because that's really how you win.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Jelen, for posing that question and that education by you, Joe. So another question I have is the no solicitation zones. Were there any changes made to that part of, how you can be a certain feet from voting? Has any change been made to that part of the election law?
So one big change that I'm actually struggling with a little bit on that is that if you have like an outside drop box, so one of the things I ran on and said that I would set up was that we would have drive-through drop-off locations at the early voting sites. So basically the way it was in the past, you would have to get out of your car and walk inside to drop off your ballot. Whereas now we want to put tents out there and have people outside. So you just drive up, drop it in the box, keep driving. Now, the new thing in the new law is that I have to put a 150-foot no solicitation zone around that drive-through. Now, what's crazy about that is, for everybody who's been to our polling places in person, you know that we tend to have, especially early voting sites, you tend to have people outside right at that 150-foot mark that are trying to, get you in the last minute. Hey, vote for my person, vote for my person. And if you're walking into a polling place to vote, it makes a lot of sense to do that. But if you're driving up in a car with a ballot that's already been voted, it really doesn't make sense for anybody to come up to the car and be like, hey, vote for my guy, because the response is going to be, hey, I'm already done. And I'm just dropping it in the box. So this becomes a hassle for us, where now we have to figure out how we're going to block off without closing off the whole parking lot to campaigns and still be able to have this drive-through set up at these early voting sites. And we don't want to infringe on anybody's First Amendment rights to be out there and advocate for their candidates. So it just really creates a headache for us. It's going to be like putting together a puzzle to get all the pieces to fit without, and have a designated area for campaigning, an area for the drive-through, and then the entrance to the polling place. So that's just, one of the headaches that we're having to work through and figure out.
So the drop boxes will be at the early voting, whatever designated area is for the early voting location. There's
Right.
been area to get out and walk. You can just drop off and keep going.
Right. We want to, yeah, that'll be the goal. In some of these places, it's very challenging. One just right off the top of my head, if anybody's ever seen the early voting site down in Davie, that parking lot is so small that it's challenged. So some of the places, I don't want to say that this is going to be the same across all of Broward County, because each of these locations have their, differences, and we will just have to figure out a way to work through it. But the goal is to have a drive-through location in the vicinity of every early voting site. And then maybe we'll just use signage and say, hey, in-person voting, go that way. Drive-through, if you want to just drop off a ballot, go that way. We'll find a way to make it work. I just don't know what the answer is going to be for all those locations just yet.
Thank you, Joe. And so I'm going to switch gears now to the canvassing board. The canvassing board, before I ask you any questions about if there's any change or anything that stood out with regards to the bill, can you explain what exactly is a canvassing board and who is it comprised of?
Yep, so the canvassing board is basically it involves, it's myself plus one of the county commissioners and a county court. So the three people who basically were making decisions in terms of the election. So we make all the decisions in terms of, verifying that the equipment is tested and ready to go, basically verifying that if there's a problem with a ballot, we would be the ones who sort of make that final decision on, what the voter's intent was on a ballot. So really any kind of tough decisions that need to be made about an election, that it will go before the canvassing board, and the canvassing board makes that decision. And that's how elections are run ultimately, is by that board, in terms of making all the tough decisions that need to be made. So
has there been major changes to that? Has there been any major changes or any impactful changes that stood out to you in regards to the new election law?
So the one big thing that we have to worry about there is that we are, they made it so that it's a lot easier for people to be disruptive. So they created a lot more rights for people to come in and monitor the election, and even people that maybe have partisan motivations who want to come in and be disruptive to the process. They made the way the law is written, they made it a lot easier for those people. And it has been something that has been a problem, especially here in Broward County in the past, where you have groups of people who aren't really there to be constructive and helpful. They're there to be a problem. They're there to cause a problem because they see Broward County as the Democratic stronghold that it is, and they support the other party and they say, hey, we just want to be disruptive and we just want to stop them from succeeding in counting the votes. We want to stop the votes from getting counted. So this is a thing that's out there that is becoming even stronger. It's kind of what I alluded to at the beginning. And it's a real concern that this law made it so much easier for those people to come in and be disruptive and stop us from doing our job.
Now, with that, with your description of what happens, are you able to pull in resources from like local police departments or security, just so you can have some type of control with these individuals who just want to come and disrupt this process?
Yes. So the one positive thing is that the law does allow me to throw people out, and I do intend to do that. So if somebody is being disruptive, I can throw them out, but they at least get the opportunity to come in and cause a ruckus before they get ejected, and then they might sue me and say that I violated their rights, and then I'll have to deal with that. But I'm ready for it. I can tell you that much. I'm here. Bring the smoke. I'm ready for it.
And how is the canvassing board selected? Like, is there like, how does one get on a canvassing board? Is it a rotation? How is that done for those who have people on the meeting?
In terms of the county commissioners, only half of the county commissioners ever up for re-election at any given time. So it has to be a commissioner who is, one, not up for re-election, and two, they need to be somebody who's not very politically active, because if you're a member of the canvassing board, you can't endorse anybody. So if some of our county commissioners are far more political than others. The person who has been involved in the canvassing board in the past is our current vice mayor. Oh my gosh, Michael
Udine.
Michael Udine. Yeah, Michael Udine has been the canvassing board person, for the last couple of cycles now. And I think he enjoys being in that position where he's not able to endorse candidates, not able to get political at all. As far as the chief judge is Judge Tudor, is the chief judge for our circuiting courts. And he is the person who selects the county court judge that actually serves as the chair of the canvassing board. And that person also is the same, because our judges are elected. They can't be up for re-election, but other than that, it can be any county court judge.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, to drop it in the chat. Joe is here to answer your questions. He wants to make sure you're informed. He wants to make sure you volunteer when he calls for volunteers. He is here and ready for you. So I'm going to ask you a question. This question was actually asked to you by the Sun Sentinel. And so it's very important going into another election cycle. So I wanted to ask you that question. And the question was, the layout of the 2018 general election ballot in Broward was widely cited as a factor in the outcome of one of the closest U.S. Senate races in American history. What changes would you make to ensure that never happens again? I want to ask you that question, plus what changes in the bill affect what you wanted to do, or changes, what you went into and what your outlook was when you first came in.
Sure. Yeah. So there shouldn't be any impact on that. So I'll tell you, what she's referring to is that in 2018, the U.S. Senate race was placed below the directions on the ballot. And just it had to do with sort of the dynamics of that particular election. Usually a U.S. Senate race is what you would call the top of the ticket, right? It's the thing everybody's looking for. And I have a feeling next year, people in Broward County, if I did tuck that U.S. Senate race under the directions, probably all you guys will find it anyways, okay? But in 2018, it was a little different. We had a very charismatic candidate for governor, that's the one people were looking for. That ended up being at the top of the second column. So people started there with the governor's race and went from there and skipped the US Senate race, which was tucked underneath the directions. Now, the real problem with this, and the reason that this is so just devastating, is that it did lead to Rick Scott winning the US Senate race. And that's a 6-year term. So he became, he's going to be the US Senator representing Florida for 6 years. And as an elections administrator, that would just be mortifying to me. Either way, to know I don't want to influence an election. I want to run the election and I want the voters to decide. I don't want any action taken on my part to influence an election. So there are things when it comes to ballot design that are just known, that there are people out there that are experts who have these skills and have this knowledge, and we need to lean on those people and hire these people, give them, hire these people as consultants, make sure they're reviewing our ballots, looking over everything, also get it widely distributed to the community stakeholders. We can do drafts of the ballots and make sure that people look at it and have time to raise these issues and raise these concerns if there's something about the ballot that would bother anybody or makes anybody think that there could be something wrong with the way the ballot is designed. So, so I just want you all to know that I understand the issue. I acknowledge the issue that happened in 2018. It wasn't me, but I acknowledge it. And I, as the person who's now occupying the same office, we do have a very different plan and a different way of approaching our ballot design to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again.
Okay, yeah, we have some comments saying, please fix it. And sounds like you're already on the ball. That's really good to know about drafts going out, hiring consultants, because I do believe, involving the community in this process is what's going to make the process go smoother at the end of it all. So have there been any changes to the election data reporting that has impact, like any major change, I just say, or any impactful change?
I'll tell you the one thing that's in this bill was in terms of us having to provide more regular updates on voter turnout throughout the day. And that was actually something we had already planned to do. That was on the agenda in terms of improving our reporting process and providing more data and providing it earlier to the public. So that was not a big change. There were some other things in terms of security procedures and precautions that was, honestly, if they had just stuck to that, I would have no problem with the bill. If they just stuck with things like improving technology, improving the security around some of the functions that we do in the office and the way that we manage our election systems, all that stuff needed to happen. It's when you start doing things that makes it, that's designed for no greater purpose, but to make it more difficult for people to vote, especially make it more difficult for people to vote by mail. That's the thing that just really made this such a really bad bill and made it a bad law for them to pass. But there are things that are in the bill that are pretty positive.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat. Will the community receive reminder notifications to register for vote by mail since it's no longer automatic?
So that's one of the things I planned with this new system that I talked about, what it's called ballot tracks. The one that I referred to with the push notifications is that after that election, especially if you sign up for the text messages, I can send you a text and it'll have the link right in there. And everybody who does sign up will get that. So you'll get a text message with the link and you just click the link and you sign up right on your phone. So most of these systems now, everything is very mobile friendly. It's easy to do right from your phone, and that's just by design, including photo registration. Because one of the, probably one of the biggest things that what I'm starting to see now as one of the biggest problems with this bill is that it really made it so that third-party voter registration organizations are, it really cripples them. It makes it a lot harder for organizations to go out and register people to vote. But we're trying to overcome that with these mobile-friendly solutions that basically will allow you to facilitate a person registering themselves to vote online using their cell phone. And, so we have a card that we've created that'll be going out soon that I actually have a QR code on it, but it'll also be a self-addressed, postage paid mail piece that you can fill out, you can fill out and drop in the mail back to us, but it'll also have a QR code on it where you can do all the same things you can do on this card. You can do it on your phone very easily and submit it that way. And almost everybody nowadays has a phone. And because of COVID, and when you go to a restaurant, you have the QR codes for the menus. All these things, all these technologies have become very, very common. And it's something that, I believe will make it, this is the future of what voter registration is going to look like. And some of the old school voter registration drives where you have people out there with clipboards and voter registration forms, and you fill it out and I take the form, that is pretty much, in my opinion, that has been killed by this bill just because of the way that they are, the restrictions and regulations that they're putting around those groups is going to make it impossible for people to continue that way. And that people are going to have to evolve and start using the mobile technology and other means to have voter registration drives.
Well, you answered my question, because I was going to ask, what about, the elderly who wants that paper, but you said, the mailing will have an opportunity for them to tear off and fill out, or somebody can assist them to mail it off in the event they can't do QR codes or,
So really the big thing with that, as far as having a paper registration form that they can mail back to us, is that if you have not been to DHSMV and you're not in their system, we won't have a signature on file for you. We need to have a signature on file. So that's when we need a paper. I wouldn't necessarily worry about the senior citizens out there, because they like to FaceTime their grandbabies and they have cell phones, okay?
Some of them now, some.
But if they don't have a driver's license or a state ID card, if they've never been to DHSMV, then we still need that paper signature from them. So they would.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. I have another question from the audience. Will there be ballot drop-off boxes at the early voting sites on election day? If not, will there be people from the supervisor of election office to take ballots from voters who mistakenly think that they can drop off ballots off at the early voting sites on actual election day?
That is a wonderful question.
You know it's going to happen. Someone's going to show up with their ballot completed.
Oh, I know very well. And I know Shahiwa knows that very well as well. Because we were both out there on election day. She was in Tamarack and I was in Miramar. And and we know
that was her question, by the way. I didn't want to put it out there, but
we know that was a steady thing. So so we're actually starting here with 8 locations. I'll tell you what the challenge is for that. The way that our law is written in Florida, we can have drop boxes during early voting hours at early voting sites. The problem is that early voting ends at 7 p.m. on Sunday, and then the polls close at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. So you have this problem of the last 48 hours. And how do you make it easy for people to turn in their ballots? Because a lot of us like to wait till the last minute. So how do we make it easy for people to turn in their ballots in the last 48 hours? The only way you can have a drop box for those last 48 hours is at a permanent office of the supervisor. So we're going to have more permanent offices of the supervisor. And those are all going to be places that happen to be early voting sites. Now, right now, what we're planning in terms of the 2022 cycle, because we have to have this set up a year in advance, we actually have to have these permanent offices of the supervisor set up a year in advance. So we're getting this set up now. And it's going to be the Northwest Regional Library in Coral Springs, the Tamarack Library, Southwest Regional Library in Pembroke Pines, the Miramar Library, EPAT Larkin Center in Pompano Beach, and the 2 offices we currently have, which includes the Lauderhill Mall and the Government Center in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And the final one will be in Hollandale Beach at the Community Center in Hollandale Beach. So there'll be 8 locations that are also early voting sites that will be locations that for that final 48 hours, you'll be able to drop off your ballot. As long as our legislature does not come back next year and change the law, which is likely. And the reason I'll tell you it's likely is that I am required to notify the Secretary of State, which is going to happen in the next couple of weeks here. And then that might trigger a reaction where they introduce a law and change the law. And I say that because something very similar like to that happened in Texas, where in Houston, Texas, they set up these drive-through voting locations. The Texas legislature literally got together to stop that, passed a law, made it illegal, said that every county could only have one drop box. So you think some counties here in Florida, we have a county that has as little as 40,000 people registered to vote, right? And we have 1.3 million. Miami-Dade has even more. For them to come back and say every county is the same, every county gets one drop box, is just lunacy. But it was the same thing in Texas. Houston, Texas has like over 2 million voters, and they're telling them you get one drop box, whereas they have other little counties that might have 20,000 people and they get one drop box. It's painful to think about and how exactly we would manage that logistically if they did it. But I would not, I think it's very likely, I really do. I think, we're gonna drive forward and we're gonna go forward with our plans. And if it becomes illegal, we'll just have to, take it from there. But, and just hope and pray that we, if you guys hear this coming, make sure you stand up and scream, let somebody know that you're not happy about it, because if they do it, you'll know why. You'll know they're doing it to stop us from turning out the vote here in Broward County.
No, I think that's an excellent idea to have 8 locations, because I know, everybody getting downtown or to Lauderhill, it's just chaos, especially if you're coming from an area that's not close. And so my question to you is, you're the second largest Broward County supervisor of elections. Do you have conversations with like the Miami-Dade, the other supervisor elections, so there's strength in numbers when you're proposing whatever you're proposing, and therefore, hey, we're all in agreement that this should happen? Do you guys have that conversation? Not, whatever supervisor of elections in South Florida.
Right. We actually do have 2 different groups. So we have our association that includes all 67 supervisors. And then there's a separate group that includes the large urban counties, which includes 16 counties. The one problem, and one thing is that the group unanimously came out against this bill that went through. And on a positive note, it went from being really, really, really bad to just kind of bad. So in a way, the association did help, but they were all against the bill. They all said no to the bill. And the bill passed anyway. So that just kind of tells you how much influence at the end of the day. The group is overwhelmingly conservative. So if you just think about the demographics of Florida and the way most of the counties, out of 67 counties, there might be 6 blue counties, we're half the population, but we're all, kind of clumped into a few counties. So even within that group of 16, there is, you don't really have a lot of really progressive people, even for the liberal counties across the state. The people who are elected to be supervisors are not necessarily, the most progressive folks out there.
Oh, thank you. Good to know. I didn't know that. I learned something new. Thank you for sharing. And so I'm going to move over to poll watchers. Can you explain to those, to us, to me, to everyone, what is the requirement to be a poll watcher? If that has changed since this new bill, let us know that. And, on estimate, how many poll watchers normally do you look to fill, and do you meet that requirement, and how the community can help you get, more poll watchers?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think there's there's not a need. We need more poll workers. I wouldn't necessarily say we need more poll watchers.
Okay, so tell the difference between poll watchers and poll workers.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the poll watchers are the people who kind of show up and are there to observe. And they get a badge, and there's a way you register through our office, and we'll give you a badge, and you can go sit in the office. You can't talk to anybody. You can sit there and observe and take notes and, raise whatever objections you want to raise without disrupting the process. So that's what poll watchers do. But poll workers are the people who are actually there working. And One thing in terms of our poll workers, we do have a new program that I hope some of the people on this call will be interested in, which is our Adopt a Precinct program. And the way Adopt a Precinct works is that it's for nonpartisan, non-political organizations. And we're going to allow you to take over a precinct. We provide everything that you need in terms of training, equipment. We give you everything. We make sure that the facility that you're in is ADA compliant. The only thing we really need from the organizations is people. We need the poll workers. We need you to make sure your people show up for training, that they're trained and certified, and that they show up on election day to work their polling location. What's in it for the organization is that they can put their branding on the polling location for all the people who show up there, and that we will make a donation to the organization for the amount that we would have normally spent to run a polling place. So it becomes this is done in other parts of the state, and it becomes a really great fundraiser for nonprofit organizations. As long as it's a nonpartisan, non-political organization, we can include you, and we would love to have you.
I think the Adopt a Precinct is an awesome idea. Will there be communication sent out to the community, or are these community leaders, so that an orientation or something, so that we can start early to get people involved, to get organizations involved?
Yes, we are working on the details. There were some changes in the law. It's possibly going to cause some problems and cause us to have to tweak our plans for the program a little bit. So we're still sort of in the process of figuring out the details. But as soon as we do, trust me, we'll broadcast the very wide net and get it out to everybody who needs to know. Everybody that we're going to want to participate, especially, we'll make sure that you know about it.
Well, we're winding down to the end of our time. I want to thank you, but I'm going to ask one more fun question to you. We know you're working hard, but we also know you're busy with your family. So what is one thing we like to do for fun as we wrap up this very, very informative meeting, figure it in on a lighter note? What is something that you can do for fun?
Well, I love to travel. My wife and I both, really, really love to travel. That's what we've missed the most over the past year. We used to go on a lot of cruises before COVID. We actually had a cruise booked in March of last year, right when COVID hit, and we were in pain over, canceling the cruise. And actually Royal Caribbean made the decision for us, because I'm not sure we would have made the right that's what we like to do. That's what we enjoy.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Everyone, please go and follow Broward Votes on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Am I missing something? Just Broward Vote it all, everybody. Follow Broward Votes. We look forward to the communication. I'm sure I'm missing something.
We're on TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. Don't forget TikTok.
We've never posted on TikTok, but we're there.
You better post the first TikTok video or whatever. You better be the first one doing something, Joe. I'm gonna be looking for that. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you for showing up. If you want more information, Joe is very responsive. Reach out to him, message him, and he is very excited about informing all of us to make sure that we finish on top, because we will this election season. So thank you again. Thank you all. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Sheila, Janice. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right. Good night.